You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me.
What you are about to hear is real. The prophets wrote of a time when the signs of the end would be seen. This is where Bible prophecy and current events collide. This is Unsealed.
Unmuting is your friend. Welcome back to Unsealed, the official podcast of Wings of the Eagle. Christopher is me, and you are you, and I am so happy that you are along for the ride today. I encourage you to take a seat, kick back, maybe grab an iced tea like I have today, and let's talk about some stuff. You are, of course, more than welcome to participate. Please enter your comment, question, concern, or etc. wherever you're watching this. If you are watching it, if you're just listening afterwards through your normal podcast channels, I love you just the same, and God loves you too, even more, but you can't participate live. Sorry about that. But if you're on YouTube, especially the Wings of the Eagle YouTube channel, please subscribe there and share that. It's really helpful to what we do, to this podcast, to the ministry. Please do so. Please, please. Super please. The X platform, Instagram, Facebook, because we have to. LinkedIn, actually, today also. And the End Time Church app. So we have no excuses whatsoever for not participating and at least saying hi and sharing this podcast episode today. See, hello, Bond Servant, checking in because she's awesome. And Madam Rex is also making some tea now, she says, but that's like a rose tea? Is that a thing? I don't know. Just a simple man. I don't know nothing about no rose tea. But anyway, please do participate and say hello. Just to say who you are, where you're from. Maybe it's your first time listening or watching. I welcome you. Yes, I'm a Christian. No, you don't have to be. But there are times there's overlap with big issues. And this is one of those times. And I've been holding off a couple of weeks from talking about this because it's kind of a take an opinion that could be misconstrued. And I never want that. So I'll take as long as it takes to being as clear as possible. And because that's important. Okay? It is. It's always important. Madam Rex's rose and lavender tea. Oh, there you go. So what is this about? Christianity, early Christianity specifically, the civil rights movement, and UFOs. What in the world can those things possibly have in common? Well, I'll tell you. First off, we should know, if you're a Christian, if you're a believer, that even today, yesterday, a lot of folks, a lot of our brothers and sisters in Christ all over the world are in prison, are injured, or their families are harassed and worse because they believe in Jesus, because they tell someone the gospel, because of their belief. And that's it. There's no other reason. You would get accused of everything, but the fact remains is you're just following Jesus, and that's it. And people hate you because of it. That's a fact. And there are people in prison, like Hebrews 13 tells us, remember those who are in prison, as if you were there with them, and those who are suffering in their body as if it was happening to your body. that never ended, right? And so we, the modern age in the Western church especially, have no appreciation at all of that reality. We American Christians have never been in a prison for their faith, have never known anyone ever who's been in prison for their faith, unless you seek it out specifically. If you're part of an organization, maybe that monitors or helps such people. If you go on mission trips and stuff like that to the third world, to Africa, to the Middle East, to Asia, to most places in the world other than the West, you can see it. But basically, entire hundreds of years and generations have no appreciation what it means to go to prison for the gospel, or to be physically harmed, or to be killed. Specifically. Now, what we have recently in my country, obviously we just had July 4th. Yesterday we celebrated independence from Great Britain. But we have recently gone through a very traumatic time in the past 50, 60, 70 years. And lingering effects still now of what we call the civil rights movement. Now, some of that, some of those leaders in that movement, not all, and nobody was perfectly doing it for sure, but much of the movement to establish equal rights for no matter what race you are, that's the basis of the civil rights movement. Obviously, there's a lot of black versus white hate and racism and evil going on. And so that movement was generally about that. But most of the movement and the top figures were doing it out of a Christian belief. All right, so it may not have been specifically for the gospel, but in their mind it was, because they saw this injustice and mistreatment and that is unchristian. And of course they were correct. And so it grew out of that. But where really, we could have debates all day long. We could make claims. We can show evidence, right? Whether you be a Christian 2,000 years ago or a civil rights activist in the 60s, or a UFO whistleblower today. Not even a whistleblower, just an investigator, a person who thinks it's cool. We can talk about evidence all day about any of those things. We can talk about opinions. We can argue. Our families might get in a tiff about it over the dinner table. But it's never going to advance. It's never going to go anywhere if there's powerful forces opposing you, if you're not willing to suffer for it. As a Christian, Jesus told me and you that from the jump. For 2 millennia now, he tells us what the deal is. If you really love me, you will be persecuted. You don't have to do anything to deserve it. It's just going to happen. Right? It's not evil happening to you. It's evil hating me. Therefore, they're going to hate you. And really hate, okay? Not just disagree with you. And not because you're a jerk, but because of you're following Jesus. Now, he prepared, everyone in the church should understand that. The church meaning any Christian of any denomination. If you're born again, you're a Christian. That's it. That's the church. But he told us, and the apostles, the original disciples, Peter and John and the boys, and Paul and Timothy, and on down the line, Stephen, of course. Why is Stephen famous? Because he was the first martyr. He just got basically a job, if you will, a couple of sentences earlier, and then all of a sudden he's dead because they knocked his brains out with stones. The early church spread because people were willing to die. And people were willing to go to prison and be harassed and be tortured and be ill-treated in every way, because the cause of Christ was preeminent. It was more important than your physical safety. And in terms of Christianity, this is not our final destination. This is not, everyone's going to die. You might as well die for Christ. And not in an evil way, but what's the big deal at the end of the day, right? So there's a theological purpose in it too. But point is, it really started to advance when a non-believing person, when a non-Christian, and I'll get to the other aspects in a second here, when a non-believing person sees that example, right? When they see you being hurt, or your family, or you're mistreated, or you're thrown out of your house, or your job, or your city, or you're arrested, or you're put in prison, or you're tortured, or you're killed, that is an example to those who don't accept it. Maybe there's something to this, because why is this guy or girl allowing this to happen? Why aren't they just recanting or saying, okay, I don't believe it anymore, just leave me alone? Why don't they just shut up about their faith and keep it underground? Why don't you just live and let live, man? Just fine, I don't care what you believe, just don't bother me with it. Or whatever. Why are you willing to suffer for this? It's just something. You don't have to suffer for this, just why? Just, they don't understand. But that's the example that they see, and the church grew. Mostly because of those examples, of those models. Boy, there must be something to this, because all of these Jesus followers are getting killed. And nobody's recanting. Like, they're all going down for this. Maybe I should think about it. Maybe it's true. And it grew and grew and grew. Civil rights movement was the same way. It was clear from the days of slavery that there was hatred of the black people by white people. And it was put into law. And it was enforced by law. And clearly, no matter what excuse you use as a racist, it's wrong. And you certainly don't get to use the Bible or Jesus or God. And like your abolitionists, again, your main abolitionists back in even the slavery, time of slavery being legal, were Christians. They were doing it from a motivation of being right and wrong to God, the true God, the real God, the one who loves us and says there is no distinction, or he doesn't play favorites. It doesn't matter what race you are. You're not better or worse than anyone else. That is where the movement to abolish slavery came from. And it was when people were willing to do something about it physically, to let it happen to themselves, that it progressed to the point where in the 1960s, people were literally being shot dead, and still the movement continued. Not just Martin Luther King or certain leaders, but to be willing to go to jail, to be willing to suffer, to be willing to have your house, shot up or have bricks thrown through the window just because you're doing the right thing. If people weren't willing to do that, the civil rights movement would have failed. Doesn't matter how evil it was. Doesn't matter how illegal it was. If it was entrenched, if powerful people and forces were behind keeping the status quo, which was, again, the Roman Empire, the racist institutions, and now UFO secrecy. If they weren't willing to pay that price, it would have failed. And so, this is what the UFO issue has to do with this. Because if there really is, and the evidence shows that this is true, there really is a systematic cover-up for decades long, not only keeping things from the public, because that's what people do nowadays, and governments just do that because they can, but illegally, outside of the Constitution that we are, again, I'm using the American example, but other nations have laws too that they're breaking. It's literally illegal to do it. It's immoral to do it. And not only just illegal in a structural way, like we have separation of powers. You have to be in one of those three areas. You can't be a fourth one that's not elected and is not accountable and steals money and commits crimes to keep the secrets that whatever you want to keep. It just so happens that UFOs are apparently the biggest secret that there is. So if that's really happening, you're eventually the dam is going to break, or you're going to get opposition, and you are now. And you have had it, but now it's increasing. It seems to be growing. It was, folks who are, everyone knows the 2017 New York Times articles and videos that leaked. Basically, they just came out and got published, and someone was willing to say, hey, maybe this is real. Chris Mellon, as far as I know, who was an assistant secretary of defense, way, way, way high up guy, had enough. He said, well, I know it's real. I'm gonna talk to the New York Times, and other people did to make that story, and I'm gonna give some videos out. There's more of it. There's longer versions. There's better versions, but this is what I can get out. Hence the Go Fast, the Tic Tac, the gimbal, right? The famous ones from our military aircraft. Because he decided to do something about it. And seems like he's pretty willing to pay a price for it. He's putting his name on it. Now, since then, basically, now there were, again, I don't want to go into the whole history of it, but you should. Now there are actual whistleblowers. Now, apparently, there are like dozens, 30, 40, 50, we're talking, that have come forward, sort of. They've come forward to government closed door government means, like Inspector General people. Like, okay, I get it. That's the way you're supposed to blow the whistle. If you're in the government, you go to Inspector General. Fine. There's different ones depending on what part of the government you're trying to blow the whistle on, and you worked in and you saw the illegalities. That's what whistleblowers are. The intelligence community, quote unquote, the CIA, the NSA, that whole alphabet soup, has its own Inspector General, and so does the Defense Department, which is the military. So they each have their own They're allegedly, separate organizations that each have their own thing. So whistleblowers will go to this route. But the problem with that is no one actually will ever know about it. Unless and until these inspector generals announce it publicly, which they don't have to. Announce something, I don't know, a finding, okay? And again, they're not prosecutors per se, right? Anyways, it's very complex. But the basic and Lou Elizondo and others, David Grush, these are government employees who said, I'm blowing the whistle. That's it. We've done an episode about Lou Elizondo a couple weeks ago. We talked about Grush a bunch. Now, these are some of the very few that are actually coming out in public and putting themselves out there and are putting themselves in danger. Even though, now they have done this, and Dave Grush has said more than in an official way than anyone ever. I mean, truly he has. To say, I know this. I was just working here. This is what I know. Here's where you can find it. Yeah, all that. And he's been threatened, yes. Before he came out and after, he says. And of course, that's not good. Him and his wife and all that stuff. And he's kind of disappeared since last July. It's been almost a year since he testified in public. He came out, I guess, May or June of last year as a whistleblower, and it just went from there. But there's like 6 months, basically, he's been gone. Because he's afraid of retaliation, of harm. And obviously you can't blame the guy, but I'm not even talking about him because he actually did something publicly. Lou Elizondo, yes, he's been public, but Lou and Dave are military veterans. They are patriotic to the extreme, right? They want to do what's best for America all the time. That's where they're coming from. So in that, what they think is what they would say is a moral position of patriotism, that they are, even though they're blowing the whistle on illegalities, and Lou has a book coming out here in a couple of weeks. It should be interesting, but this is not how it's going to move the ball. Lou and Dave will not, and others, I'm thinking of Nick Pope in the UK, I'm thinking of, just so many examples. Even those who come out publicly with some information will still and will to this day say, I will not violate my NDA. Even if it's wrong. Even if what I know is illegal, I won't violate my non-disclosure agreement. Because they think that will hurt someone else, basically. And I get that. I do. But if that's the game we're going to play, you'll lose. If you're not willing to actually come out in public and be put in jail or be hurt, I'm not saying you're required to do this. I'm just saying it's history. This is the lessons and the wisdom of history. If there really is a great secret, illegal, world-changing, all the ways that you want to think UFOs are, or potentially could be, or the pilots in the UFOs, or the intelligence behind it, all of that, whether good or bad or whatever. All that stuff, if you really think it should come out, and obviously, if you're a whistleblower, you do, otherwise you would just shut up about it. If you're really a whistleblower, if you really want for this to end, for this to crumble, for this truth to come out, you have to be willing to suffer the consequences. And that means breaking your NDA. That means going to jail. That means getting physically harmed. That means having your family possibly harmed. Not saying I would want that. No one wants it. But if you're not willing to do it, then you're not willing to do what's needed. Because it's very clear, not just the evidence of documented over 80 years, but it's still clear right now today with Arrow and all these other examples that they are not the powers and whatever else, the powerful people and whatever behind keeping it a secret are very, very much still invested and ready to keep the secret. They are not falling over. They're not, you know what I mean? They're not folding up like a lawn chair. They're not going to just roll over and let it all come out. They have themselves decades and generations potentially of their families. Because that's a thing too that has come out a little bit, is that the secret keepers keep it in the family. So they are very, very invested in not letting you say. Well, so are the civil rights opponents. It was government level, right? We're talking about governors and United States laws that were saying it's okay to keep slaves, or it's okay to segregate based on your race. It's okay to and all whatever came from that. You have to change it at that level. You have to go to the top. You can't just, hope your little itty bitty bit of information, you hope some good researchers there will figure it out and make something happen. It's never going to happen. If you really want it to come out, and no one who is going to, probably no one will ever hear this who is a whistleblower. And that's too bad. But I get it. Or someone who's in the position. I'm just saying, I don't want anything to happen to anyone. I wouldn't want it to happen to me. I don't. I'm not saying anyone should do this or that. I'm telling you the facts. The fact is that I don't care what you're talking about. If it's a big world-changing event that's opposed to the powers that be, you will be harmed. You will be put in jail, or at least they're going to threaten you with it. Even if most won't follow through, which hopefully is what happens here too. But you might go to jail. You might be harmed. Your family might pay a consequence, pay a price. If you're not willing to do that, shut up. You're not serious. I would say that to a Christian who is not willing to go to jail for their faith, who wants to fight it tooth and nail with their guns and their favorite elected officials saying, protect Christianity. This is garbage. It's lies. It's not the truth. If you're not willing, or your family is not willing to pay the price, for example, the cause of Jesus, get out of my church. That's what Jesus is going to say. Get out. You're not real. You're not serious. I don't know you. You're lukewarm. You're not willing to do what needs to be done. You are not serious. That's it. That's how they're connected. And I said early Christianity because it's very easy to show the vast majority of early Christians were killed or imprisoned because of Jesus. That does not true anymore generally, like all over the world, but it is very true in certain parts of the world. So that hasn't changed. So when I say early Christianity, I'm just appealing to that general knowledge of the early church, but it still happens. And again, and the civil rights movement and the UFO issue, yes, they're all the same in that if you're if you're willing to tell the truth and come against the powers that be who are powerful and who have the ability to arrest you, and worse, if you're not willing to pay that price, you're not serious. You just want to scam someone, or you want to have a good life somehow, or just kind of say what, do it halfway and keep your retirement or keep your house. That's not serious. You're not a serious Christian. You wouldn't be a serious civil rights supporter, and you're not a serious advocate for disclosure or telling the truth as a whistleblower. You're not serious. That's it. And so that's what I have to say about it. Maybe it's controversial, could be misconstrued. I've taken 30 minutes now to elucidate that. If you disagree, now's your time to say so. Obviously, if you're not listening live, you could always do it on YouTube or whatever. But by the way, go message me on X if you want to talk to me. Quickest Mantei4, MANTEI4, as you see under my name here, there. And also, you see, by the way, we have a Patreon page. Please do support it. You don't have to get anything for it. If you don't want, you can just give. That would be awesome. But we do have things being set up, members only things, support. We're writing a new book. We have the existing book, Flee to the Mountains, if you're interested. Go get that. Or this, where you see it scrolling at the bottom, the Aviary, which is, yes, it's a takeoff, a play on something that's real or has been real in the past in the UFO community, or that this topic. But now it's just regular folks. Maybe you work in the government or, that type of jobs, and maybe you don't. Maybe you're just a guy like me or a gal who is into this and wants to have a secure place to talk about it and have a community where things can be shared and not blabbed all over the world. That's fine. So that's what that's for. Go to patreon.com/Wings of the Eagle and find out and join that, please. Okay. Time's yours. Let's see what we got here. By the way, no matter where you're watching this, you can participate and ask something. Bond Servant says, it seems inevitable, if this is true, the UFO thing is going to be revealed by them. Crypto-terrestrials, whatever, is bound to be exposed. By them, who do you mean by them? The secret keepers, or the whistleblowers, or the intelligence behind the UFOs? Who's the them? Jesus said, if you save your life, you'll lose it. That's what he said. It couldn't be simpler. It really couldn't. Nobody likes to hear that. But it's the truth. So just believe it or not. If you don't really believe it, don't do anything about it. But if you really do, and you really think it's important, and people are really getting hurt if you don't say something, which is the truth. The UFO thing, yes, people are getting hurt if you continue to play these games of not saying everything, not violating your NDAs, not willing to pay the price. People will be hurt and lied to, and the deception and the crimes will continue. Just like if you weren't willing in the civil rights era, you would not be changing anything. People will continue to be hurt and hated and institutionally, all that stuff. And obviously in church history, if you're not willing to go to jail for the gospel, people are going to hell. So, do you take it serious or not? Okay, so when you sponsor and says it seems inevitable, if this is true, it'll going to be revealed by them. I said, who's them? She says the UFOs or aliens, if you will, show themselves. Okay, so the intelligence behind it is going to do that, not us. That's what you're saying. And that might be the case. Like Independence Day, the movie, right? Well, that's one scenario, right? That they have bad intentions and they're going to invade, right? And they're going to reveal themselves. Doesn't matter what we do or say about it. Here it is. Maybe, maybe, and it could be a very long game that they're whoever they are playing, because up till now they haven't been interested in revealing themselves at all. And now we're going on at least 80 years, if not 100, if not 200, if not 1,000 years of this without revealing themselves. So I would say it's officially long-term. It's a long-term strategy, unless you're thinking in 1,000-year increments. It's a long-term strategy for whoever is behind it to not reveal themselves to this point. So they would have to change that. So we know, right? I mean, even if it's only 80 years, it's probably been longer, but even if it's just that, we're talking almost 100 years now, a whole century of not revealing themselves. What are you waiting for? I mean, it's literally what? We got weapons apparently they don't like, or they're monitoring like crazy. They don't like the when we go into space or when we're trying to go to the moon. They're watching us and or whatever. High technology, if that's it. Maybe it's I don't know what. We can go everywhere. Maybe once we start going under the water, they're going to know it. Like, who knows? I mean, we can do a lot of the stuff that you would think they would have done it by now if they're going to do it. But who knows? But if I'm in a position to know, here's the thing. If I'm in a position to know, and I do know 1,000 times more than your average Joe Christopher Manti out here, like Lou Elizondo, etc. If I know a lot of stuff, I don't know everything, but I know a good deal more than your average person. What's the advantage of not saying it all? You got to just say everything. You got to say what you know and move on. And say, well, if this does it, great. Maybe this is going to inspire somebody else to actually speak up and not be a coward. It does help, doesn't it? If you see as a Christian, if you see a very, bold evangelistic person, you feel empowered to do that more yourself. That's human nature. So yes, we need more. Tell everything. Spill all the beans, no matter what agreement you signed. Spill the beans, because it's too important. Madam Rex's catastrophic disclosure. That would be a version of, I guess, of catastrophic if the intelligences, whatever, themselves are actually doing the revelation of themselves, right? Coming out. I don't think that's what Carl Nell meant by that, by the way. This is a phrase that most people first heard at the end of last year when Carl Nell said this at the Seoul conference. There's managed disclosure versus catastrophic. Catastrophic meaning, in his parlance, that you can't control the narrative. It's out of your control. I think he's probably more referring to China or Russia, or just basically what I'm talking about, which is everyone say everything you know. That would be catastrophic because it's chaos. There's no way to manage it. You don't know what's coming next, or who's going to say what, or what evidence is coming forth, or what is going to be revealed, what crimes are coming out. Yeah. But also, right, the guys or gals, whoever is keeping this, they themselves, this intelligence can say, well, we've been at it for so long, let's just change the script up and tell the whole earth what's going on. That could be also, that's certainly catastrophic, because no human's going to control it at that point. And not that I know of, right? If they are, and by the way, yes, please, we know there are folks watching, just comment. I don't care. There's no judgment here. You can say whatever you want. You don't have to be any person or belief or whatever. It doesn't matter at all. If they are interdimensional, time has no real meaning as we count it. Well, not necessarily. Again, we talked about this once before. There are interdimensional what? This is something that's kind of nerdy, but we really do have to be precise with our terms, okay? To travel that way is one thing. To exist there is another thing. You know what I'm saying? To travel in a way that warps space and time, yes, you could get from point A to point B instantaneously without time passing. Right? You know, it takes me, if I got on an airplane, it would take me 5 hours to go 3,000 miles. If you could travel it in this other way, you can get 3,000 miles in 1 second or 0 seconds. In that way, time doesn't have the same meaning. But again, like now, if we're talking about beings or something that exists in dimensions that we can't perceive, or in a smaller or larger dimension, and that's what dimensions are. Maybe. Or they just really have a long-term plan. By the way, that UFO seen over Red Rock concert place in Colorado was a real report, was even on live news here. Yeah, I saw more about that, which is the initial stuff, the initial comments and whatever about it was not useful. So yeah, if you have multiple or dozens of witnesses, that's way better than one or two. And where's the video or the pictures? If it lasted for X amount of time, there should be some kind of that out there. I just saw something this morning that apparently that there was follow-up done by the military aircraft in that same area. You could say, well, why were they there? They were chasing down something, or they were trying to recover something. Maybe, right? So I think that story is just starting to come out. I don't doubt what you're referring to was the initial person that broke it was very. You can't post if you're going to share information and you're sharing a video from a news broadcast or something. You actually have to put in your post what that video says. You can't exaggerate it to get more clicks. Can we say that that's immoral? Yes, it is. If the video says 2 and you say 12 witnesses, if the video says a few seconds and you say 30 seconds, that's what I had the problem with. In what Bond Servant's talking about, you may not have even seen it. You have no idea what I'm saying. But just in general, when we share information that can change, this is the same with war. Like, right, things like there's an attack on so and so, or terrorism. They call it the fog of war, basically, right? Things with the information when it first happens is not always reliable. So we got to really get to what the truth actually is. It takes a while sometimes. All the witnesses, sponsor on this, the Red Rocks thing, all the witnesses I heard say it hovered for a few moments and then zipped away, disappearing as it did so. That's pretty typical, right? Yep. And by the way, disappearing, that's, I mean, if you saw a couple weeks ago, I had a sighting a couple Saturdays ago. And it was there and then it was gone. Just gone, disappear, gone. So what's that? I didn't see it zip away anywhere. It just was existing, hanging in the sky, doing nothing, and then it's gone. I don't care what you think about UFOs. Something is up with that. Anyways, all right, friends. If no one else has any comments or anything else, we'll call it a day and a podcast here for Wings of the Eagle. Please, again, support what we do. Please, it's all depending on you. It all depends on you. People sharing, watching, giving, participating. Ain't no other way it happens. My friends, you guys, there's no other way. Okay, I'm going to do it because I'm called to do it as long as I can, but there might come a time where I can't, or we can't offer these things. I know there's a million people asking for your support and your money and your sharing, and it's overwhelming at times. But if you think it's worth it, and there's a little niche that this organization called Wings of the Eagle is filling. It's a very small niche, perhaps. Hey, I know you. Hello, Melissa. Hello to you as well, my friend. That's one of my sort of sisters. Awesome. Praise God. Thank you. Thanks, Melissa. Anyways, so again, this is a niche. It is. It's a kind of a unique situation that we're in. So if you think this is worth it, if you are like me, if you do think it's important for Christians to talk about this stuff, then you got to support what we're doing. That's bottom line. Because it's a small minority inside a minority, it needs to be supported. Otherwise, it goes bye-bye forever. Okay? So please do that. Do what you can. Tell somebody else. Share these podcasts and stuff. It's help. Every little bit like that does potentially help. But anyway, go see what we got on the Patreon page to help support it. We're going to roll it out properly maybe one day. I don't know. But it's there. So please do tell somebody, participate. If you miss something, just rewind. As long as YouTube will let it stay on, it'll be here. And reach out to me on X or on the End Time Church app. I want to check there. Somebody come? I don't think I missed anything. We're good. All right, guys. Till next time. Christopher Manti for Wings of the Eagle. Unsealed. And if you're live today, this is Friday, July 5th. We will be doing a Q&A live later today. So I'll be back for that. And that's about anything and everything at all. All right. Till next time. This has been Unsealed. Bye-bye.